A lot of questions of late around auto layout and certain variables within it. So I figured what I'd do is I'd put together a component. We're going to create a button or a call to action. And I'm going to walk through the various variables that sit within auto layout that help us make our button. I figured it's probably a good component to use for this demo. So first things first, we're going to grab a piece of text. All right, we'll call it label. Now you can see the box that sits around this piece of text. Under layout on our right hand side, I'll move this closer so the context is here. Okay, we've got these three options. We've got fixed size, auto height, and auto width. Now I'm going to select auto width, and you can see that it now hugs this piece of text. If I drag it out, you'll see it moves. I'm going to hug it again. The reason why we want to make sure that we've got the auto width selected is as we decide to change the copy inside our button and we've created the component, I want the size to be responsive, and I want it to shift in line with the number of characters. I don't want to break the button. So that's the reason why. That's the first thing that we need to do to make sure that works. So if you try and make a button and you're typing in the text and the button's not resizing, look for that layout option for auto width. Now there's two ways we can turn this into a shape. So I'm just going to duplicate this layer. Option number one, to create a shape around this text label, Shift A. I'm pretty sure it's the same for PC and Mac. And then what you'll see is it's now created a frame. So we've put an auto layout around this piece of text. Now you can relabel just by double clicking. I like labeling my frames because the more complicated you get and the bigger the components, the more sophisticated they are that you build, you're going to end up with auto layout within auto layout within auto layout. So you're going to have frame within frame within frame. So it's pretty good practice and good sort of hygiene to get into to label your layers appropriately. So we're going to call this a CTA. And I'm going to hit fill. And I know that I want my button to be green, so I'm just going to select any old green. Let's pick this one. We'll change the text now. Oops, we're going to change the text and make it white so it's accessible. And we might maybe give it some rounded edges. So we click on the frame, down here under appearance, we'll go 8. Okay. So there's our first button. Now the second option, if I hit shape, okay, go fill. I'm going to select the same green again. I haven't set this up as tokens yet. We'll do tokens another day. But for the time being, we're going to use this color. Now we're going to go object, center back. Okay. And we're going to grab these two and Shift A. Oopsie daisies. Why'd that happen? Let's try this again. Select, Shift A. There we go. Now we can see that it's created this auto layout within it's got our shape and it's got our piece of text sitting within the frame. So if I go under here, I can see everything there. We'll label it again, CTA. I'm going to change the selection color here just so it's the same. So we're working like for like. And we'll set this to 8. Now you can see the size is different, but that's okay. We'll get to that in a minute. Now, they are the two different ways that you can put a shape behind a piece of text. Personal preference, I actually always prefer to create the shape and then to use the shape within auto layout, but there's many ways you can skin a cat. So we're going to park this guy for the minute and we're going to focus on this one. Now the reason I'm going to focus on this one is because as we can see, I've created the shape. I just drew it freehand. It's snapped it into the middle. So I've got 13 pixels is the gap above and below the text and 13 pixels left to right. So I can either click and drag manually, so Command Z because I want to undo that, or I can click and then on the 13 using my keyboard, I can move those around. But actually what I really want to do is I want them to all sort of snap together nicely. So what we're going to do is we're going to select our frame and next to this guy here, next to width of 69 pixel, I'm going to set this to hug contents. And I'm going to do the exact same thing with the height. You can see that it snapped it down a little bit, but what that's now going to allow me to do is I can click onto here. And you can see when I hover over here, over the number 13, you can see the two blue squares on the left and right hand side of the label text. Now I can just use my keyboard arrows up and down to change how many pixels I would like to sit between. So I'm going to set that to 20. And I think maybe above we set it to 10. Okay. So now what happens is if I double click into label and I want to change the label, now we've got a nice responsive button using auto layout. That's not how you spell. It's also not how you spell. Okay. Now we've got a nice clean button. And of course, if we now wanted to turn our button into a component, we've got our frame up here, create component. So now we've got our component. So if we're going to start using it, I'm just going to drag a copy across. You know, this might be submit. Okay. That's essentially how you create a button using auto layout. Hope that's helpful.